All right, welcome back. Glad to have you here. Today's topic on the podcast, I think, is an interesting one because it's something that's been on my mind over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But then a situation came up in a coaching session this week that I thought I'd give you a little insight into. And it's really around what happens when you achieve some level of success and you realize once you arrive, it's not what you really wanted. So, if you're new here, my name is Catie Campbell. I am a certified executive coach and a C-suite whisperer. I have worked with, now over 25,000 leaders in, I can't tell you, hundreds of different companies over 25 years. And it's interesting that this topic has come up, but it comes up sort of cyclically in my coaching practice and with leaders that I work with. And so this week, the situation, I'll just lay it out. I got to change names to protect the innocent. So we're going to call this lady Amy. Amy is a very accomplished professional in her career field. She's been climbing the corporate ladder since she started, like one of those people that's a high performer. She's always getting, great assignments or great opportunities because everything any boss has ever given her, they just throw it at her. She over delivers and they love her for it. So she's been steadily climbing the ladder. And with that comes success. It comes perks and benefits, bigger salary, all that kind of stuff. So in her company, she's really been trying to get herself ready to take on a senior vice president role. She's been a vice president for a couple of years now. And again, everything that they've given her, especially post-COVID, she's really helped to evolve her department, her division, and it's really had a positive ripple effect on the entire company, right? So the CEO loves her, the top C-suite leaders, they all love her. And so it was pretty much a given that she was going to get this promotion. So this is the time of year where that company does it. It's always before the 4th of July holiday. So I was just really anticipating a great coaching session with her. So I guess 2 weeks ago, they gave her the promotion. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance around her promotion and a couple of other people in the company. So yay, Amy got what she wanted. So she's 2 weeks into this new job, and I'm thinking she's going to just be like, Catie, this is amazing. Here's all the things that I'm doing and whatnot. And instead, she's near tears. She's near tears starting off the call. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did somebody die or what happened? Nope. She said, I can't believe this is what I wanted. I can't believe this is what I wanted. And honestly, I was a little taken aback at first, but as she kept telling her story, it started to make a lot more sense. So all along, she knew she was destined for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And most of the leaders that I work with are people who are trying to achieve success, career growth at the next level. So it's not an uncommon thing that I see in my practice. I typically work with people who are on a path, or they are the person. Most of my clients now are the ones who are running a company. They're the CEOs, they're the C-suite folks, they're the board members or chairman of the board. And so they're the ones that are doing strategic direction and that sort of thing. So they've sort of arrived, and what they're looking at is growth, expansion, market domination, that sort of thing. So the growth and the achievement and success is a little bit more lateral, if is not necessarily vertical. But Amy's still one of the last ones that I work with that's doing the vertical thing. So she's upset. And, as we started to unpack her story, it made a lot of sense to me because what she was going after was a significant raise, because this title increase included a significant raise, another level of benefits, which is really cool. Everyone loves that. But it also had a different set of responsibilities, some of which she knew, and the rest were all assumed. Like she thought, when I get there, I'll know what I need to do, and I think I know what a senior vice president of this company does. She did not. She did not at all. And so even in her first 2 weeks, she's questioning whether she made the right choice. And I won't get into the ins and outs of what this company is specifically asking her to do. It's nothing out of line with what I've seen in other companies. There's nothing wrong with what they're asking her to do. But essentially, they've taken her out of her sweet spot of what she loved and does best. And now she is sitting on top of all the other people who are doing what they love and what the whole reason why they got into their industry and in their career field specifically. So I took a step back and I started thinking about why this actually happens. And for me, I'm always going into human behavior. This is absolutely a human behavior type of thing. And so I found 3 different studies over the last couple of days that I want to share with you. And one of them comes from a researcher who is really big into positive psychology. And he created, I'll put a link to this study and the other 2 that I have in the show notes. There's a concept that he came up with called the arrival fallacy. And the arrival fallacy basically says that humans are really terrible at predicting when we arrive, how happy we will be at the destination. And I think everybody has experienced this. If you've ever taken like a long road trip or you've had a hellacious day of air travel and you finally get to where you're going, you're just like collapsing into your hotel bed or your Airbnb and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm here. That was terrible, right? You think when you arrive that you're just gonna be like, waha, I'm on vacation, and it's never that way, right? You just feel completely depleted. We think we're going to feel a certain way and eventually we get there, but we typically don't. And so his studies suggest that, we believe that the title of the promotion, that next level of success, is going to give us lasting happiness. And for some people it might, but for most of us, it typically does not. So the reason, and I'll get into some of the reasons behind that in a second. A second study that I found, which is I think equally as interesting, comes out of Harvard and UVA. It's called impact bias. And so this is similar to the arrival fallacy. The impact bias also suggests that humans have a hard time at accurately measuring how we overestimate like how happy we will be when we achieve something in the future. So this is exactly like nails Amy 100%, right? She thought senior vice president, let's go. I'm going to be super happy. This is what I've always wanted. And then she gets there and she doesn't, right? And I'll get into the reasons in a bit about why she doesn't. But so now we know that we've got this fallacy around when we arrive, we think it's all going to be great and it doesn't. And then the impact is, we think that this title or thing that we want out there is going to have the appropriate happiness impact that we want to have. And it typically does not. There's one piece of it, too, that's connected. A lot of times what I've seen in my practice is when somebody is wanting the next level or the next role or position somewhere, they're also chasing the money that comes with it or the compensation or the perks that come with it. Now, back in 2010, Daniel Kahneman, and I realize 2010 is a long time ago, but Daniel Kahneman, who's Nobel-winning prize researcher, he did a study that back then said that people, once you hit an income level, now this is in the United States, you hit an income level of $75,000 or the equivalent a year, that anything over that really didn't make a remarkable difference in people's life satisfaction. Now, I know there's some of you who are listening who are like, whoa, $75,000, like that's not even getting a lot of people anywhere in this economy, and that's 100% true. This study was done 16 years ago. So we can probably bump up that number to, let's say, 125,000 or 130,000, something like that. It's not to say that we wouldn't like to have more money, but in terms of satisfaction around what we're producing and what we're doing, it goes out the window, which seems kind of counterintuitive. I've always wanted to make as much money as humanly possible. And it's changed my life in terms of what I can purchase, I guess. But it doesn't mean I'm more satisfied in the work that I'm doing. I find a ton of satisfaction when I am helping somebody, when I know that I'm moving the ball forward with a company, with their strategy, and they're hitting their strategic goals. Like, that's the kind of stuff that lights me up. More money in my bank account, it doesn't light me up. In fact, that doesn't get me out of bed in the morning at all. I know I need to make money so I can pay my bills and take care of my children and take care of myself. But at the end of the day, that's not why I do what I do. So I kept thinking about, when have I seen this before? When have I heard this before? And 2 other examples. These are not people that I coach, but are people who really mean a lot to me in my life. So my producer, Owen, who helps me put together all of my social media and all of my podcasting and all of my videos, really. He's the guru behind the camera. He is an Army veteran, and we were talking about how, as he was coming up through the ranks, that when he started off, he's like the coolest. He's one of those guys that loves blowing stuff up, and he's he is a hero. He's gone through a lot of deployments and gone through a lot of stuff on behalf of the United States of America. Well, when you're a junior enlisted person, you get to go and you get to drive the tanks and you get to blow up the guns and you get to launch the mortars and stuff like that. He said by the time that he in his last tour of duty, he was like, I didn't get to do that. I was the guy telling the guys what to do. So he's sitting there with the computer and saying, here's what you need to do, and they're getting to do the cool stuff. And the higher up you go in the military, it's the exact same thing. It could be officer enlisted. It's the exact same thing. The higher up you go, the less cool stuff you get to do. So the person who is a 4-star admiral is not the one who is driving the aircraft carrier. They're not, right? The person who was a 4-star general in the Air Force is not the person who is flying a fighter jet. They're just not. So the reason why people get into the military, why? Because they want to fly planes, because they want to blow shit up. That makes a lot of sense, of course, right? But the higher up you go in leadership, you don't get to do those things anymore. And so it's actually pretty common. He and I were talking about this. It's pretty common to see people say, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore because I don't want to do administrative stuff. I don't want to do paperwork. I don't want to just tell people what to do. I want to do the cool stuff that got me into going into the military at the very beginning. It makes a ton of sense. Similar, my fiance is this really accomplished chef, award-winning chef, oversees multiple restaurants at one of the largest country clubs in the state of Florida, one of the largest private clubs, if not the largest private club. Anyway, his name's Richard. Richard, I remember we were out somewhere and somebody asked him how much cooking does he get to do and doesn't he love getting to cook every single day? And he's like, I don't cook every single day. And I knew this. I knew what the answer was. But he doesn't because he's got teams of people who do all of that. So quality control, yes. Training and development, encouraging people, looking at, setting up the strategy for menus and large events and making sure all of those pieces and parts are going to come together flawlessly for their members. He does that. On occasion, he does get to do some really highly sophisticated cooking and putting together some very, I would say, high-end dinners and really fancy food. But on the regular, that's not what he does. He's the guy making sure payroll's done. He's taking care of employee disputes. He's taking care of performance reviews. He's doing all the paperwork stuff that nobody goes into culinary school and says, you know what I want to do? I want to learn how to run payroll. Not one person says that. They want to be able to make amazing dishes. They want to be the next Anthony Bourdain or Gordon Ramsay. So all that to say is that many people go through their careers and they realize at some point that if they take the next step, if they take that next level, they're not going to necessarily love what they're doing. So Richard still gets to do really cool chef things, so I think he still loves what he does. Owen is now running this amazing company here in Texas, and he's getting to do what he loves because he wasn't going to sit and do paperwork and admin stuff for the Army. It was just not going to fly. So back to Amy. I got into it with her to really help her to start to understand what was going on. And part of it was she had this whole idea that if I got to a senior vice president level, that would mean something to herself, but also to other people. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? That will mean that I could feel secure, that I could go anywhere and another company would want to hire me, that I could get a job somewhere else, that I would have recognition within the industry. I would be secure in who I am because I've been recognized as someone who is a senior leader in my industry. Okay. She also said, I felt like that would make me feel confident in really setting strategic directions, because before, as I was coming up through the ranks, I think I was doing that, but now I could have the confidence to do that. Okay, so what's changed? And she said, yeah, well, I think I've been setting strategic direction all along, but just at a smaller level. Now it's just at a bigger level. But now I don't actually get to do the hands-on work that I used to love. I'm just setting direction, and then everybody else goes and does it. And I'm just trying to check to make sure it's done really well. I don't get to roll up my sleeves anymore. And I said, okay. And she said, and then, I updated my LinkedIn profile, and all these people are like, oh, this is so great. Congratulations on your promotion and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, yeah, that's kind of what happens when you put stuff on LinkedIn. And she said, yeah, but then what? Nothing else changed. It's not like somebody started calling me and saying, hey, we want you to come speak on a stage, or we want you to come present at a conference, or nothing happened. And then she got into the nuts and bolts of the rest of the work stuff that now she's responsible for. And yeah, if it were me, I'd be like, no, no, thank you. And it's one of the reasons why I left corporate America to begin with. Coupled with all of this, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had this post that went viral on Instagram and on TikTok about how everything in corporate America is made up. And if you haven't seen it, follow me on whatever the socials you like. And it was interesting, not just for the video. I said what I said in the video, but the more important thing was what was in the comments. The comments were fascinating. I kept digging through all of these people that were sometimes agreeing with me, sometimes not. Because what I said was everything in corporate America is made up. The spreadsheets, the Excel sheets, the meeting before the meeting before the meeting. Like, it's all made up. And the bigger the company you work for, the more you can see that. And honestly, people felt that way. And there's a lot of people in those comments from all different industries at all different levels. I'm talking some of these really senior people that were like, yeah, she's totally right. Some of this stuff is complete BS. That it doesn't mean anything. The title doesn't mean anything. Sometimes it means nothing at all, or it means very little, or it will have very little impact in your life. So I got to thinking about Amy, and she's one of many people that I have worked through this scenario with. Sometimes it shows up, I don't know if this could be you, that you're getting a little antsy at your job. You're like, they're never going to promote me. I want to make more money. I could make more money going over to this other company. So I've seen a number of people job hop. I've worked with a number of coaching clients who have left the company while I'm coaching them to go to another company. And I don't give advice, right? I'm really helping them feel secure in the decisions that they make. But I've seen a handful of them that leave their company because they're like, they'll pay me $30,000 more, $50,000 more, or I'll get a company car or whatever the perk might be. And they make the leap and go over, and all they've done is traded one set of problems for another. I had a friend of mine who used to say, the grass is never greener on the other side of the fence. The brown spots are in different places. So they'll go and jump to another company, and yes, they're getting paid more, but they're dealing with a completely different set of headaches versus the known headaches that they had in the place that they just left. There's been a couple of people that I've worked with that have made the leap into a different position, but the reason why it worked out well for them is what I want to get into now. So a lot of times people are chasing a feeling. They're not trying to chase a milestone. What do I mean by that? So a milestone, is senior vice president. A milestone is now I'm the CEO of this company. A milestone is I went from being an individual contributor to I'm in a leadership or a people leadership role, which is great. And sometimes that really does open the right doors for you. So going from just a C-suite leader or a COO leader or a senior vice president to being a CEO of a company, that's a remarkable leap, right? That is a milestone. But oftentimes when these changes or when these achievements don't resonate, it's because people are chasing a feeling that they think the title or the new position or the new company is going to give them. And so the biggest letdown is when they get into that role or that new company and they realize that the feeling they were chasing isn't there. So how do we make it so that we don't end up in the same position that Amy's in or the people that I've worked with? And it might be you. You might have changed jobs once and went, oh my gosh, this is worse than where I was before. And come to think of it, this happened to me years ago. I was working in nonprofits, and nonprofit life is hard. And oftentimes it's not very, it's not really wallet friendly, right? You just don't get paid a lot of money to do the work you do in nonprofits. And I had done it for about 10 years and thought, maybe it's time to get back into corporate America. And part of what I wanted to do was I wanted a different title, but I also wanted to feel like I had a bigger team, a bigger slice of the pie, a bigger budget to manage, and a bigger influence into how leadership development was going to work at this one company that I joined. And so I did. I took the leap. I got paid. I doubled my salary. Like, who doesn't love that? That was great. Tons of other executive perks that came with it. So I was really happy there about that, right? Initially, I'm just like, yes, check the box. It's just like Amy saying, senior vice president. So I go back into corporate America. I have the role that I think is my dream job, and I start working in it, and I immediately realize my mistake. The first day I started that job, my new boss, who I will not name, my new boss said, you need to fire this person that's on your team. I'll give you 30 days to figure it out. who says that? Like, I just got here and now you're telling me I need to fire somebody. Um, it just, that was like the tipping point for what was going to be one of the worst experiences I've ever had professionally working in an organization. So I thought I was going to have all of this influence, and I was chasing that feeling. I wanted to feel influential. I wanted to feel like I was helping. I wanted to feel like I was strategic. And what I got instead, and I also wanted to feel accomplished, right? Making more money, having a new executive title. But I was chasing the wrong feeling. Because as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I don't do what I do for the money. I like the money. That's great. And that helps me live my life. But that's not what gets me out of bed in the morning. What gets me out of bed in the morning is working with the Amy's of the world to help them really then integrate this new experience and figure out what is she going to do. It's working with the president of this bank to figure out how they're going to expand into a new market, and then helping them write the strategy and then watching them actually execute on it successfully. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's not about how much money I'm making. It's not about what title I have. And, running your own business, you can call yourself whatever you want. And I could call myself the chief of the pandas. It doesn't matter what I call myself, right? It just doesn't. What is consequential is the impact that I'm going to have. So how I unwound from corporate America, and you don't have to unwind from corporate America to do this, but I decided to get myself out of my own problem, and I created a tool that I wished a coach or somebody had given me, and it's actually something that's available to you as well. So this tool is, on the surface, it looks like a guide to help you set goals. And everybody thinks about setting goals, the beginning of the year, which is, I don't think you need to do that. In fact, I encourage people to set goals in the fall. When we're recording this, we're just before 4th of July. So the second half of the year, how do you want to run through the tape through the second half of the year? And quite frankly, if anybody knows of or has been through a recovery program themselves, you can get sober on October 12th. You can also get sober on, January 21st. It doesn't matter what day that you do it. It just is, that's the starting point for how you're going to live your life going forward, right? So same thing. So if you're thinking, I don't do goal setting in the middle of the year, or I don't do it in the fall, whenever you're listening to this, it doesn't matter what day you pick. What matters is, and how I wrote this goal setting guide, is to help you distill the impact and influence that you want to have in different areas of your life. So what I learned again, I love the audience being the best teacher. I learned again from that one post that went viral when I was dogging on corporate America, is that people have stopped living to work. They're just like, I work so I can have a life, but I am not letting corporate America or my title or my position or what I do define me. It's what I do. It's what pays the bills. And then I go home at the end of the day. And I think that sentiment's been growing a lot post-COVID, and with return to work and the Great Resignation and all the kinds of changes that have been happening in the business world and the corporate world. So, but what I'm finding is then there are still some people who are just like, yeah, I'm not satisfied with my job in corporate or my job wherever it is, but they also don't have that next direction of where do I want to have impact? What is the feeling that I'm chasing? And what are the kinds of things that I need to do to achieve that feeling, to achieve that impact, to achieve that influence that I'm looking for? And that's exactly how I wrote this guide. So it's not one that's going to teach you how to write a SMART goal. If you want to do that, Google it. And those are important, right? It's measurable, specific, all that kind of stuff, time bound. I get it. And I've taught that before a long time ago. But that I could set a goal to increase my revenue by 30% or market share by 15%. And you get to that 30% and then go, well, was that arbitrary? Does that mean anything? Am I really having an oversized impact on or influence on the leaders that I want to help pour into? And the answer is probably no. It's probably no. It's more business. It's more money. But am I having the influence, the impact? Am I getting that feeling that I'm actually contributing something of value? The answer would be no, right? And if I could say yes, it would just be a fluke or an accident. And I don't like doing things by fluke or accident or luck or just waiting on serendipity. I believe in all those things. I also believe in creating your own luck and putting yourself in the right position to be lucky. So if you are someone that you've been listening to this and going, yeah, I have felt unfulfilled. I think that what I'm supposed to be doing is the role that I'm in, and it still hasn't clicked all the way. If you got into a new position or you changed companies, you started a new job and you're like, this still isn't hitting it for me, it probably means you need to do the inner work around what is the impact, influence, and what is the feeling that I want to create for my life that's right for me. So if going up through the ranks and being more an administrative leadership role does not sound cool and sexy, even though it would pay you more, but you want to make more money, there's other ways to figure out how to do that. If you want to feel more satisfied in your life and you just don't feel that from the job or the role that you're in, this guide can really help you to discern, what do I need to do? What do I need to change? Where do I need to make improvements? And it doesn't necessarily mean I need to get a new job or just make more money somewhere. It could just mean that you need to find true fulfillment elsewhere. So if this is resonating with you, we'll put a link to where you can get the guide in the show notes. And I'd love to hear from you. If you've made one of those like title changes or job changes and realize, oh my gosh, this is not the same. This isn't what I wanted, or this is objectively worse than it was before. I want to hear about it. And as always, appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you next time.